If you're joining, hey, if you're joining us, I'll say that again. Welcome to BABS 46 Harmony College Online. I'm Mike Taylor. I'm the Harmony College Education Manager for BABS. If you're just joining us, that's welcome. And if you were here for our earlier presentation this evening, welcome back. We've got some great sessions planned this week, and I hope you're going to enjoy all of them, 2 sessions each evening. So thanks for joining us. If I could ask you to stay on mute during the session, and we'll give our speakers the best chance to deliver their stuff. But if you have any questions, please use the chat facility to do that. So for our guest speaker, our second guest speaker tonight, we're delighted to have Theresa Weatherbee with us. Theresa is a great friend to Labs and Babs, and only just earlier this year she was here and joined us for the joint Labs and Babs judges seminar, where she was a brilliant inspiration and mentor to the judging community from both organizations. You probably know Theresa, but she was among the first women to be certified as a BHS judge in 2019. But has been a key leader in performance and presentation for many years. I would say decades, but you know, many years. Let's go with that.
Hey now.
Before that, I think I first met Theresa when she came over to judge the Labs convention in 2004 in Cardiff. She was brilliant then, if slightly intimidating. And she was, but she's been highly instrumental in the changes in the judging system from presentation to performance, and she's always got some great stuff to share with us. So, Theresa, welcome.
Thanks,
I think
Mike.
going to get your presentation up in a minute, but welcome, and off we go. How are you today?
Wow. Well, welcome. And I say hello from Phoenix, Arizona, where it's 110. Let's just, if you want to convert that, that means everything's melting, including me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mike, for asking me to do this. It's wonderful. And I'm very excited to share with you what I call the singing actor class. This class has been developed and redeveloped and reinvented since the new performance category started back in 2016, and actually since rewriting the category 2 years ago. So I hope some of this information everybody will find useful, and if anything, it's going to open your minds and have you thinking a little different from a performer's perspective. I can't promise you go out and be wonderful performers after this, but I certainly will give you some tips and tricks on how to get started. How's that? Oh, you're muted, Mike. Okay,
awesome.
I'll just keep going.
On mute. I didn't expect to interact. Yeah.
Everybody, thumbs up.
That's brilliant. Thumbs up from everybody.
Right. Yeah, thumbs up from everybody. So I guess I'll get started. And thank you for that introduction, Mike. Yes, so as I was saying, I'm very excited to share with you some of the changes that has been happening in at least in the BHS world. And I know that our organizations work together in the judging community as well, and so happy to share with you some thoughts and the progress that we've been making in the last few years, especially since the rewrite of the category. And I know this is a really difficult situation. If you were in my class situation, I would say, by the raise of hands, how many actually know there's a new category description out there? Anybody? Does anybody know? Yes. And if you don't, I encourage you to go and have a read, because it is fabulous. It's a great read. It's an easy read. I was a part of that writing team, and I wanted to help people. I wanted to have it more in layman's terms, so that when you were reading it, it was using more like a reference guide. It's a judging manual, but it's also a reference guide for the performer to see what it is that the judges are looking for. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but right now, I want to talk about the singing actor. And that is something that's been very near and dear to my heart for a very long time, because not only do I have 48 years of barbershop history, I do have some background in musical theater, where I was a choreographer and singing coach. And then I became a background actor for movies and television here in Canada. Well, I say here in Canada, I used to live in Canada. And so I've had, lots of experience in performance from many different perspectives. And the one thing I did discover, being a part of all of those experiences, was that we tend to use the same skill sets. Yes, acting as well as barbershopping, as well as musical theater. It's all pretty much the same skill sets. And currently I work with I'm in the corporate world working with vice presidents on their presentations. And again, the skill sets are the same. So I'd like to talk to you about those skill sets and how can we apply them as a barber shopper, and how can we be more successful, and I'm hoping that's why you're here, in your performance, your personal performance. As you know, we are generally, there's no soloists in this barbershop world, because we're making harmony, and that usually takes 4 parts, whether you're in a quartet or whether you're in a chorus. So you're always working with an ensemble. But within that ensemble cast is our individual performers, and that is you. That is you. And to better the ensemble, we better our personal skills, our individual performance skills. So, Alistair, I'm just going to say, how about next? Since you're controlling the slide presentation today. Thank you so much. And yes, I have it. You can go again. Yeah. So I want to ask you, and this is something, and maybe you can just, by a show of hands, how many believe they are the singer who happens to perform? Okay. And how many believe they are the performer who happens to sing? Ah, that's great. Oh, good. I see some hands. That's wonderful. And why do I ask this question? Because in our history, in our culture of the barbershop world, we tend to focus an awful lot on our singing. Isn't that true? We tend to focus on our singing and our musicality and the artistry within that genre. And then we kind of expect you to go out on the stage and perform. But very little is talked about, how do we do that, right? If there's no time left during rehearsals, then when do we have that opportunity? And there's some things that I'd like to, talk about that later, but right now, staying focused on the singer versus the performer. And in the singing, the singer, let's just imagine, if we will, you're in a cozy cafe and there's you're sipping on your latte or your, cocktail, and there's a little stage off to the right, and there's a singer on the stage, but that singer is belting. I mean, singing with all their heart, those soulful tunes, and they're weaving these, beautiful melodic sound throughout the atmosphere, and you're just listening to it, and you see a singer performing. And right now, their primary focus is really on their vocal delivery, like their pitch and their tone and their technique. And it's all about hitting the notes. I mean, trying to perfect something that we feel is very important as we sing. Would that not be true? Is that kind of what we do on a regular basis? Yeah. But now let's just shift gears a little bit and imagine, if you will, a theater, just like the one you're looking at, with the curtain. And the curtain opens, and there's a performer center stage. The lights happen, and there's beautiful costumes, and you hear them starting to sing. And the performer is engaged in embodying the entire vocals and visuals and storyline. Their voice matters, of course, but that's only part of the tapestry, because the way they move, the way they emote, and all of the connection they make with the audience, that's what the audience loves to see. So in short, an audience doesn't come to watch you sing. They come to watch you perform. That's where the entertainment is created, right? Yes? So now we can just get to the next little part of the slide here. Alistair. So, okay, keep going. Thank you. What's the difference in terms of, are you a singer who happens to perform or a performer who happens to sing? Because your answer will predict the way you rehearse. Your answer will determine on how you approach your music, your songs, and it will also change the way you perform. Think about that. If you're the singer first, the way you rehearse will be technically, it will be all technically driven. You'll be worrying about all of the nuances of singing. But if you were the performer and the way you rehearse, you're the performer who wants to sing with emotion and to rehearse with the outcome in mind as we are singing through the music. Next, please. So in essence, performance is truly just a state of mind. It's the way we approach our rehearsals that's going to help us better performance skills, believe it or not. And shedding these old beliefs, like I say, you know, because our culture has been a certain way most of our times that we've been in barbershop, if we shift that mindset from being the singer who happens to perform to becoming the performer who happens to sing, it unlocks a tremendous amount of possibilities in the artistic field, in the belief world. You know, you become more creative. And how do I do this without, I know that some questions are, well, I'm just the one that stands on my director tells me what to do. No, the director gives you information. It's what you do with the information that's going to help you to become better at using it and performing. And I talk about another class that I would love to, you know, talk to you about sometime in the future. It's about how do I integrate all these performance skills into my rehearsal time. And there are ways. But as we go further, and we're talking about a belief system that we've had for a long time. Next slide, please. I want to help us understand what it is that we use as we stand on stage as a performer who happens to sing. And the first and foremost, as we talked about before, is our voice. It's the instrument in which we use to communicate, just like I'm communicating to you right now, except we do it in song. And you can evoke emotion through that, the way that you're expressing through your voice, and you can create magic on the stage through our voice. It's what's, you know, it can engage the audience. It can also, if it's not great, it can bore them and they don't stay interested. So the way we use our voice, but most importantly, our voice. And our next element that we use is our body. And that body helps us to express verbally and non-verbally. Verbally through the voice, but non-verbally the way we communicate using gestures and movements. And in other words, the body tells the story. So I said earlier about the audience wants to come watch you perform. They don't come to watch you sing. And that means that they also want to see what they hear. And they want to hear what they see. Now, I'm not talking in riddles, but if they want to see what they hear, in other words, if we're doing a beautiful love story, the body should embody that kind of love, that expression on the way we use our hands and the way we express through our bodies. Now, if it's a fun up tune and you're not doing any movements or gestures, but what some folks call choreography, then it's only half entertaining, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what do you think the last element is? Well, if you're thinking, you're trying to use your imagination. And that would be the answer. Our imagination. It's the creative engine that we use. It's what we do with the music, how we interpret it, how we want to express it, whether it's through choreography or through just gestures. It creates on stage for us. That's what we use. And we tend to not forget about our imagination, but perhaps never thought that that was important. Because a lot of the time, again, our culture has been to wait to be told what to do, whether it's through directors, coaches, choreographers, and we tend to live in the do world. And that's not a bad thing, but that can only satisfy you, the performer, to a certain level. Because once you know what to do, then you have to think about that so that you can prepare how to perform it. And when you do that, now you're starting to use your imagination and your mind, and you're starting to feel. Because if I said to you, I want you to imagine a beautiful, warm, sunny day. So how does that make you feel? Well, hopefully it brings a smile to your face, especially since you probably don't see the sun as much as I do over there. And maybe you forgot how that felt, but it's beautiful. And so you see how thought creates feeling. So the do is actually, the plan. But once you've passed that, you have to now prepare that plan. And you can only do that through the thinking of how that is to unfold. And that helps you to create how it feels. Is that all making sense? Kind of goes hand in hand. And there is kind of a hierarchy to this. Do is so important. Please don't misunderstand. But sometimes that's where we tend to stay. And as an individual, if you want to raise your individual performance level, then once that information is given to you, whether it's the interpret the plan, the story, the scenario, whatever it is, the choreography, you don't just do it. Now you have to think about that. And then hopefully that will help you to feel how that makes you feel. And then you get to express that. And that's where that level of believability comes in. How often have you watched performers where you just don't believe them, but they sing really well? Well, it's because they haven't applied the next stage of how does it make them feel as they are communicating these words through the music. I'm just going to, if I could, just Mike, at this stage, are there any questions about what I'm talking about? Can I do that, or do you want to wait until the end?
It's your session, Theresa. So, do you want people to call out if they have a question, or put it into the chat?
Why don't you put into the chat, and I'll keep going because again, this class there's so much depth to this way of thinking, but I hope it's given you something to think about. Let's go to the next slide. So when we think about great performers, especially the singing performers, if you can just think the last time you saw a performance that you were really engaged in, and there's performers that engage you, but there's something special about them that you go, wow, I wish I could do that. And would you believe me if I said you can? Of course you can. You just have to know what it is that makes them so engaging and so wonderful on stage. And there's so many different skill sets, but I've kind of chosen the top 5 that I believe are really a great start and are really kind of important. And the first one is that performers that look so confident on the stage and are so believable is because they believe in themselves first. You know, do you trust yourself? Do you believe in yourself first? Because without that, it's kind of hard for your team, your ensemble mates to believe in you as well. And how do we do that? By knowing the plan, of course. So the performer that trusts and believes in themselves first exudes that as they step onto the stage because it makes it believable. And they're really true to the message that they're communicating. They believe in it. It's like a great salesman. A great salesman can sell because they believe in the product. And your way of selling is to communicate through music. And if you believe every word you're saying as if they were your own, that message will come across really more natural along with belief. And also the performers take command of their own performance. I kind of forgot to put that word in there, but I didn't say take command of the stage. And I'll tell you why. As a performer who's been on lots of stages, you don't have control of the stage, but you do have control of your own performance. And if anybody's ever been on the stage where things have gone wrong, that's may not be your fault, but as long as you're in command of your performance, you'll know what to do and how to handle it. And that shows a lot of confidence to the audience. So do you notice a trend? Believability, naturalness, right? Confidence. Those are all the skill sets we hope that we have to be great at what we do. And the last one is that they are aware and understand what's motivating you every time you perform. What's the purpose behind the message I'm about to communicate? What's the purpose behind all these movements or choreography that I'm doing? If you don't know, you're just going to live in the do. You're just doing it. But for them to be believable and natural, or at least for it to be believable to the audience, is to ask the question, what's the purpose behind this movement? And that's a whole nother class as well. But those are my 5 top traits of a great performer. And I'd like to transition. And did I see any comments? Oh, I see lots of comments. Let's just see if there's any questions. Last opportunity.
I think the comments are coming. This ran from the previous session as well, Theresa. So
okay. Okay, I'll ignore those. All right. So I talked. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I talked earlier about the new performance category and category description, which I was a part of with Mark Kettner and Joe Hunter. And it took us almost 2 years by the time we wrote it and got it approved. But within that category or category description, we kind of sectioned it off. And they're really simple characteristics that we've been talking about for years, but we wanted to be clear that this is exactly what we want our performers to understand, that if you bring these elements and characteristics to the stage, you'll have a great performance. All right. And the very first one is believability. Believability. The next one is communication. The way we communicate, what it is we're communicating, why we're communicating, through music, of course. Creativity. How creative are you with the songs that you're performing? How are you interpreting them? How do you create interest for the audience, for them to stay engaged? Quality of sound. This is how the music, how the singing makes you feel as an audience member. Quality of sound is about whether, if it's in tune, probably is going to make you feel pretty good. If the singing is out of tune, it's probably not going to make you feel good. And it also goes hand in hand that if you see a performance that's highly entertaining visually and the quality of sound isn't quite there, there's a disconnect. And so the scores probably won't be as high. So you can't really have one without the other. And the singing aspect of that, if it's out of tune, that's, we hand that off to somebody like Mike to say, fix this, please, because I just know how it makes me feel, but I know you can help them on how to make it better, right? Artistry. That's a lot of the talk, I know from the singing perspective, is creating artistry on stage. That's what engages, through the singing, through the quality, the tone, the color, and all of that stuff. From our perspective, it's about how you create for the audience, again, to stay interested. And those elements of artistry come into play, I would say, pretty much across the whole entire 3 panels. And audience rapport, or ensemble rapport. It's important that you have a rapport with the folks that you're communicating with on the stage, as well as the connection you make with your audience. And stylistic adherence is about, really, let's talk about making sure that what we feature on stage is truly barbershop, not a tap dance routine, I hope that all makes sense. That's a real simple discussion about the elements, but all in all, that's what's helping you create entertainment for your audience. And that's kind of what we evaluate in the end, is the overall entertainment experience for the audience. The next slide is the components. In other words, how do we create those characteristics? Well, we do it by the musicality. I think that might be the first one. Yeah, oh, good. Musicality. It's how we use the music and create all of those other characteristics. The next one would be the vocal aspect of it, and how we can utilize the best possible vocal techniques on the stage. The visual plan, of course, and how you are creative with that. And does it make sense? Is it meaningful? Is it purposeful? We'd love for the ensembles to have personality, and especially individuality, that brings out the best with the giving and communicating the same message. We don't want cookie cutter performers anymore. We know that and I have to say, judging international last year was an amazing experience, because, and I would even in the top 20, every quartet that came out, you could see them. You could see individuals, you could see the personalities, and that's exactly the way we hope this barbershop, is the future of, because that's more relevant to the real world of performance. And that's what makes what we do isn't easy. It's in the words of Hugh Jackman, he says, it's daunting to perform live, but we do it all the time. And I say, when we do this, what do we want to experience ourselves as performers? Hopefully be wonderful at it, yes, but to love what we do and have fun doing it. And the audience will receive that from us through all of our actions on stage, vocally and visually. I know I'm running out of time, and I would love to answer some questions. And again, this is very brief overview. But do you?
Theresa, just to say we can go a few minutes over because we started late, so please don't feel you need to be compressing things. But totally get it if you want some interaction from the audience. Do you like people to take themselves off mute to ask questions?
Yeah, I would love that if anybody had any questions regarding any of these. So yes, I would love that.
Why don't you kind of raise a hand, and I'll try and keep an eye on the screen. It might, sort of, and I'll sort of attempt to chair that. If anybody's got a burning or not burning question, just a soft question that they've not really thought about hard. I got one that I wanted to just come back to while people are thinking, Theresa.
Yes.
You talked about the experience of seeing individuality and personality on stage. How does that map into because you talked about the quartets, but how does that map into a chorus performance?
In terms of individuality,
Yeah.
well, the thing is let me just say what we have seen in the past, where people just stand still and never really personally express. Now, we would love to see people express how the music is making them feel by what's the music asking of me, the performer? Because the singing actor really is just truly understanding your role on the stage, right? And every song asks something different of us. Now, that some people are going to say, well, you mean I can do my own thing up there? Well, we can talk about the song. See, the thing is, the ensemble should know everything there is to know about how you're going to present this song, so that we're communicating and conveying the same message. So no, you can't go up there and individually do something on your own. But the way we express, I mean, is don't, try not to look human, be, how would I express this love? How would I express anger? And that sort of thing. Now, mind you, there's going to be moments where I call them corporate movements and gestures. Okay. The appropriateness to that is to make sure that anytime you put that into a plan, is that they are, that it is, they're appropriate to the musical or performance theme. In other words, if you're doing a 1920s song, and you want some movements in there, or jazz, make sure it would be of that era to make it look appropriate, that sort of thing. But what if there wasn't any moves, to any planned or corporate moves? Then the expression would really come from the character that's driving it. I mean, there's more depth to it, but I think overall, the idea is not, when I say individuality, I just mean be you on the stage in terms of how you would express things. I hope that makes sense.
I love the answer that we should try to be human. It's
Yeah.
so radical, but when everything else fails, let's go for that.
Yeah, because we tend to stand there stiff and never move because there's nothing to do. Well, you're always expressing throughout the whole song. You should be expressing.
Thanks.
There's always something to do.
Thanks, Theresa.
Yes.
I've got Frank and then Matthew. I've got
Okay, Frank.
Let's go with that. Frank first.
Hi, Mike. Hello, Theresa.
Hi, Frank.
When we rehearse, we've spent very, very little time talking about performance. I mean, we talk about the need for it, but we talk very, very little about achieving it.
Yes. Well,
presumably presumably you think that in a rehearsal you should spend quite a bit of time concentrating on that.
Absolutely. The 3 hours that we spend together as an ensemble cast, whether it's 4 or 24, is the fact that we get together to rehearse what we already know. So you would want to make sure that what you'd know everything there is to know about how am I communicating this song, how am I presenting this song. So I think the piece that's missing is the discussion on what it is and how I want to present this, and not just me, the whole ensemble. Because if you're going to rehearse performance and you don't know what it is you're rehearsing, that in lies the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
you think every song should have a story, and the same story for
yeah,
everybody?
yes. As I just said, every song asks something different of us as a performer. Every song. And if we sing and stand and sing the songs, every song the same way, that's not very entertaining, not only for the audience, but for you, the performer. So We want to be able to analyze the song, analyze our script, as I call it, because each song truly is a script. It's not your story, it's somebody else's story, and you're just communicating as if it was your story. So that you want to make sure that you can analyze the script and find out everything you can about what's happening, how's that make me feel, how am I going to show that on this. You can do that individually, by the way. You can do that to every song you pick, you happen to communicate. So there's more depth to the answer. There's different, but go with the mindset, as I said earlier, to rehearse as a performer, and just know that everything you say and you're singing is in performance mode, that you're communicating what the song is asking you to communicate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matthew.
Thank you, Theresa. Some fabulous insights here. Now, for those of us who in the past, or maybe until now, have thought of ourselves as singers trying to perform rather than performers trying to sing, and also who've possibly suffered with confidence, what tips do you have for building confidence for a credible and impactful performance?
If it starts with yourself, then know everything you can know about how to sing the songs you're singing. Be very confident. And you develop confidence by knowing what it is you need to know. If you go to rehearsal and you don't know your music, then that's not, you're not going to be confident in that. So it's really a personal thing. I mean, where are you in your level of knowing what it is you need to know about what you're going to rehearse? Because I have to say that, as somebody who belongs to two different ensembles, and one is a kind of a semi-professional one, is that if I go to rehearsal and I don't know my music, I can't practice my performance at a high level because I'm still working on music. Another way to develop confidence is, as within the ensemble, is to have each other give what we're, have each other watch each other, so that you can say, look, I really love it, Matthew, when you do this. That's going to build your confidence. Watch yourself perform, video yourself performing, and say, I can change that. I can be better at that. Building confidence is just, can be personal, individually, as well as an ensemble cast. You can help each other. But knowing your information and your material is probably the biggest way to start building confidence. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Bill, you've got your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, this is great stuff, Theresa. Thanks very much. My question: we're all, I guess, in our clubs working on this, yeah, because middle-aged English men aren't particularly good at emoting to use. With the up-tunes, which are usually happy, it's possible to get across what you're saying, because you can use hand gestures. The sun is shining, we're all smiling, like you say. Have you got any tips for the slower, more serious songs? Because obviously, you cut back massively on the hand gestures and the tap dancing, as you say, and so on. How do we get guys to emote with their faces? Because that's, I think, all that's left. Or am I wrong?
I believe you're, I don't want to say you're wrong, Bill. There's more than just your faces. Yeah, of course. Again, when we naturally have something sad to say, or something depressing to say, or something loving to say, you're not going to use big gestures, but you're going to use a lot of the upper body to do that. And now notice what I'm doing when I'm talking to you right now. I'm using my head a lot more. Okay, I'm changing the position of it depending on how from thought to thought, which you can do within, I'd have to know which song, but something like heart of my heart, I love you. Life would be not without you. Notice I pull my body back and I get bigger and I express with my chest. That's the nonverbal way of expressing without using hands. Okay. And again, that's kind of a class in its own. But if you start to be aware of what you do naturally, because I'm pretty sure if you were having a conversation with somebody and you never moved and all you did was just use your facial expressions, that wouldn't be very exciting.
That's
But
what our audience has been telling us.
but that's what we tend to do. We get up there and we go, oh, I can't move because I'm afraid I'm going to look different than somebody else. That's being an individual saying, no, I'm going to express the way I would naturally express here. I'm expressing the same thing, but I'm giving myself permission and freedom to utilize everything other than my hands to express. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
Super. Thanks, Bill. Good question. Ray, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to, there was a question that's come up on the chat. I was just wondering whether you've got enough time to look at that, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I have time.
Perfect. So this is from Jeff Stockham, who's on the call today. He says, this was a comment. He said there was a good Harmony University video linked from the BHS website on the performance category, but it's been blocked on YouTube due to copyright. He found it useful, but was wondering whether there's any plans to have perhaps something new that we could view.
Absolutely. I believe that's in the making as we speak, because that video was as a time go by, probably 20, I'd have to say, I don't know when it was, but it was when they changed from presentation to performance. And to be fair, that was pretty much just a name change. They went into the category description, marked out everything that said presentation and put performance in there. That really didn't change the category. However, it brought to light some of the thought process of what we'd like to see on the stage, which is now what the new category description does. So first stop for this gentleman, I would suggest that you go and read the new category description, and that will be quite helpful. And then secondly, just wait for the new one to come out. How's that?
That was a question on the chat. So for Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. I don't think Jeff can communicate at the moment, but I hope that's okay.
But that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Theresa.
Super.
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. I don't see any. I feel like an auctioneer. I don't see any raised hands. Just at the moment, so perhaps that's a good time. We're just a little over the appointed time for us to finish, but I think one of the important points you finished with there, Theresa, is again the idea that it would be a really good idea that anybody who's in the contest could go read the new performance category description. I've read it.
Absolutely.
Very illuminating, and you know, it tells you what the performance judges are looking for. Great, it's great stuff. So Theresa, thanks ever so much. Fantastic stuff, and I can see everybody giving you their muted applause.
Well, thank you. I hope that your mindset has been changed, and hopefully your approach to your performances and rehearsals will help you become a better performer.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And let me just plug again our online sessions, which are continuing this week. Tomorrow we have a session which actually will look at a few performances, and there's some commentary in there about performance as well as the other two categories, singing and musicality, which I'll be leading with 3 experienced judges. And then we have Dr. Jim Henry with us tomorrow evening, which should be a fantastic treat, and I'm sure many of you will be joining us for that. So hopefully see you again tomorrow at 7:30 and again at 8:30. Take care and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Theresa.
Thank you, Alan.